When Zhuangzi's wife died, his closest friend Huizi rushed to the house, expecting to find a man shattered by grief. Instead, he found Zhuangzi sitting on the ground with his legs splayed, pounding on a clay pot and singing. Huizi was disgusted. "You lived with this woman. She raised your children. She grew old beside you, and now she's dead and you sit here drumming and singing? Have you no heart?" Zhuangzi stopped drumming. He looked at his friend. And what he said next has disturbed, confused, and ultimately transformed every person who has encountered it for the past 2,300 years. "When she first died, do you think I didn't grieve? But I looked back to her beginning, before she was born. Not only before she was born, but before she had a body. Not only before she had a body, but before she had breath. In the midst of wonder and mystery, a change took place and she had breath. Another change and she had a body. Another change and she was born. Now there's been another change and she's dead. It's just like the progression of the 4 seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. She's sleeping peacefully in the great chamber of nature. If I were to follow after her crying and sobbing, it would mean I don't understand anything about destiny. So I stopped. That passage isn't about death, it's about a way of seeing. A lens that transforms every experience, every loss, every fear, every ambition, every frustration you carry into something unrecognizable from what it was before the lens was applied. And right now, you need this lens, because you're exhausting yourself fighting things that were never meant to be fought. You're gripping things that were never meant to be held. You wake up every morning and immediately begin wrestling with reality, pushing it into the shape you think it should take, and collapsing every night under the weight of a world that refused to cooperate. Not because reality is cruel, because you're seeing it through a lens that turns everything into a problem. Taoism doesn't solve your problems. It dissolves the lens that creates them. 7 principles. Each one a shift in perception so fundamental that the life you see after absorbing it bears little resemblance to the life you saw before. Subscribe to Quiet Mandate and tell me in the comments what you're currently fighting hardest against in your life, because by the end of this video, your relationship with that fight will have permanently changed. Let's begin. The war you don't know you're waging. You are at war with reality. Not dramatic war, not visible war. The quiet, grinding, invisible war of wanting every moment to be something other than what it is. Traffic should be faster. The boss should be fairer. The weather should be warmer. Your body should be thinner. Your partner should understand without being told. The promotion should have come sooner. The line should move quicker. Every should is a tiny sword drawn against what already is. And you draw hundreds of them daily without noticing. Research on rumination, the brain's habit of repetitively cycling through unwanted thoughts about how things should be different, reveals the neurological cost. A landmark 2015 study by Dr. Gregory Bratman and colleagues at Stanford University, published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and cited over 1,700 times, found that rumination activates the subgenual prefrontal cortex, a brain region associated with self-focused negative processing. The more you argue with reality in your head, the more this region fires, and the more it fires, the deeper the grooves of dissatisfaction become etched into your neural architecture. You're not unhappy because life is bad. You're unhappy because your brain is locked in a permanent argument with life as it is. And that argument is a war you can never win, because reality doesn't negotiate. Lao Tzu saw this clearly. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 29. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. The universe is sacred. You cannot improve it. If you try to change it, you will ruin it. If you try to hold it, you will lose it. That isn't resignation, it's the starting point for a completely different relationship with existence. 7 principles that dismantle the war one weapon at a time. The first principle: everything contains its opposite. Chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching. When people see beauty, ugliness is already there. When people see good, evil is already there. Being and non-being create each other. Difficult and easy support each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. This is not poetic language. This is the operating code of reality. Nothing you experience exists independently. Every quality you perceive exists only because its opposite makes it visible. You cannot experience joy without the contrast of sorrow giving joy its definition. You cannot know success without failure providing the backdrop. Health has no meaning without the shadow of illness. Light is invisible without darkness. Your suffering comes from labeling one side good and the other bad, then spending your entire life chasing the good side and fleeing the bad. But Lao Tzu's first principle reveals the trap. You can't have one without the other. They arrive together. Always. Every promotion contains new pressure. Every relationship contains vulnerability. Every achievement contains new expectation. Every comfort contains the fear of losing it. This doesn't mean nothing matters. It means your categorization system is broken. When you stop dividing experience into wanted and unwanted and begin seeing each moment as containing the full spectrum, the frantic running stops. Not because you become passive, because you stop exhausting yourself fleeing from half of existence. When something painful arrives this week, try this. Instead of asking, how do I escape this? Ask, what is this experience the necessary other side of? The answer will always connect the pain to something you value. The grief connects to the love. The anxiety connects to the ambition. The loss connects to the attachment. And in that connection, the pain doesn't disappear, but it stops being an enemy. It becomes a cost you can understand. The second principle: water always wins. Chapter 8. The highest good is like water. Water gives life to the 10,000 things and does not strive. It flows in places men reject, and so is like the Tao. Chapter 78. Nothing in the world is softer or weaker than water. Yet for attacking the hard and strong, nothing can surpass it. You admire hardness, strength, force, unbreakable will, rigid determination. The modern world built its entire value system around the idea that the strongest, most forceful, most unyielding person wins. But Lao Tzu looked at nature and saw the opposite. The Grand Canyon wasn't carved by dynamite. It was carved by a river that never once tried to be strong. It simply flowed. And the hardest rock on earth yielded to it, not in a moment, but across time. The river didn't fight the stone. It persisted around it, over it, through it, until the stone was reshaped entirely. Your life is filled with immovable stones, people who won't change, systems you can't control, circumstances that refuse to bend to your plans. And every day you're throwing yourself against them, cracking yourself against surfaces that feel nothing while you fracture. Water doesn't break because it never resists the shape of the obstacle. It conforms to the container, fills the gap, and continues moving. Your practice this week. When you encounter resistance, any resistance, a conflict, a closed door, a rejected idea, a person who disagrees, instead of pushing harder, ask, how does water move here? Where is the gap? Where is the path of least resistance that still moves forward? This isn't weakness. Water is the most powerful erosive force on the planet. It simply operates on a timescale that your impatience can't perceive. Persistence without force. Direction without collision. This is how water carves canyons, and this is how you move through obstacles that brute force will never break. The third principle. The empty space is where life happens. Chapter 11. 30 spokes share the hub of a wheel, yet it is the center hole that makes the wheel useful. Mold clay into a bowl. The empty space makes it useful. Pause here. Think about your day. It's packed. Every hour assigned, every gap filled with a podcast, a scroll, a task, a conversation. You've engineered a life with zero empty space because empty space feels like wasted time, and wasted time feels like failure. But Lao Tzu points at the bowl and says the clay isn't the useful part. The emptiness inside is. Without the void, the bowl holds nothing. Without the hole, the wheel doesn't turn. Without the open space, the room isn't a room. You have eliminated the emptiness from your existence, and then wondered why nothing in your life has room to breathe. Your relationships feel suffocating because there's no space between you and the other person. Your work feels grinding because there's no space between tasks for creative thought to arise. Your mind feels chaotic because there's no space between stimulations for silence to do its repair work. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Neuroscience by Liu and colleagues, building on Bewley et al.'s 2014 meta-analysis of cognitive reappraisal studies cited over 2,500 times, confirmed that the brain's capacity for emotional regulation depends heavily on prefrontal cortex resources that deplete under continuous cognitive load. Empty space isn't wasted time. It's the neurological recharging station that makes clear thinking, emotional balance, and creative insight possible. Create 1 hour of genuine emptiness tomorrow. No input, no output, no purpose, not meditation, not rest, purposeless space. What arises in that void is what your overscheduled life has been suffocating. Here's what I want you to reflect on. When was the last time you sat with absolutely nothing happening and felt at peace instead of anxious? Comment honestly below, because your answer reveals exactly how much of the void you've lost. The fourth principle, knowing when to stop. Chapter 9. Fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Chase after money and security and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval and you will be their prisoner. Do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. This is the principle the modern world cannot hear, because the modern world runs on the gospel of more. More ambition, more achievement, more growth, more hustle. The very idea that there exists a point where enough has been reached sounds like the voice of someone who has given up. But Lao Tzu isn't describing giving up. He's describing precision. A blade sharpened past its optimal point doesn't get sharper, it chips. A bowl filled past its edge doesn't hold more, it spills. A career pursued past the point of purpose doesn't produce more fulfillment. It produces emptiness wearing a suit. Chapter 44. Fame or integrity? Which is more important? Money or happiness? Which is more valuable? Success or failure? Which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Research on voluntary simplicity confirms this at scale. Dr. Joshua Hook and colleagues published a 2023 meta-analysis in the Journal of Positive Psychology, examining 23 empirical studies across multiple countries. People who deliberately chose sufficiency, who identified their enough point and stopped there, reported consistently higher well-being, deeper relationships, and stronger sense of purpose than matched peers pursuing unlimited accumulation. Your practice. Identify one area of your life where you've passed the enough point, where more effort is producing diminishing returns, where the sharpening has started chipping the blade. and practice Lao Tzu's instruction with surgical honesty. Do your work, then step back. The fifth principle, softness is the signature of life. Chapter 76. A man is born gentle and weak. At his death, he is hard and stiff. Green plants are tender and filled with sap. At their death, they are withered and dry. Therefore, the stiff and unbending is the disciple of death. The gentle and yielding is the disciple of life. Look at where you've become rigid. The opinion you refuse to update despite new evidence. The identity you defend even when it no longer fits who you're becoming. The plan you cling to even as reality reveals it was wrong. The image of yourself you protect at the cost of genuine connection. Every rigidity is a small death, a place where growth has stopped and calcification has begun. The research on psychological flexibility, the scientific counterpart to Lao Tzu's principle, is overwhelming. A 2024 overview by Dr. Michael Levin at Utah State University, reviewing the entire body of acceptance and commitment therapy literature and cited 69 times within its first year, confirmed that psychological flexibility, defined as the ability to adapt behavior in the presence of difficult thoughts and emotions, rather than rigidly fighting or avoiding them, is one of the single strongest predictors of mental health, relationship quality, and meaningful engagement with life. The stiff and unbending is the disciple of death. This isn't metaphor. Biological systems that stop adapting begin dying. Psychological systems that stop flexing begin suffering. The question isn't whether you're rigid somewhere. The question is where. Find it, soften it, not collapse it, soften. The sixth principle. The way does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. Chapter 37. The Tao does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. This is Wu Wei at its core. Not laziness, not passivity. The elimination of unnecessary action so that only essential action remains. You do 20 things today. 3 of them matter. 17 are noise generated by anxiety, habit, social expectation, or the illusion that busyness equals value. Wu Wei strips the 17 and leaves the 3. Zhuangzi illustrated this through the parable of Cook Ding, a butcher who carved oxen so perfectly that his blade never dulled. When asked his secret, Cook Ding explained that he didn't cut through joints and bone the way other butchers did. He found the natural gaps in the anatomy, the spaces where the blade could pass without resistance, and guided his knife through those spaces. He'd used the same blade for 19 years. Other butchers replaced theirs monthly. Your life has natural gaps, paths of least resistance that still lead where you need to go. But you're so committed to forcing your way through bone that you've never paused to look for them. Wu Wei says, stop cutting, start looking. The gap is there, it's always there. You just can't see it while you're swinging. The seventh principle, return is the movement of the Tao. Chapter 40. Returning is the movement of the Tao. Chapter 16. All things flourish, but each returns to its root. Returning to the root is stillness. Stillness is returning to life. Everything cycles. Spring becomes winter, becomes spring. Breath goes out and comes back. Energy rises and falls. Relationships expand and contract. Careers bloom and rest. Nothing that lives moves in a straight line. Everything spirals. Your suffering comes from expecting a straight line, expecting that once something improves, it should never decline, that once you feel good, sadness is a failure, that once a relationship deepens, distance is betrayal, that once you find purpose, confusion is regression. Lao Tzu says no. The return is not failure. The return is the movement itself. Winter isn't the death of spring. It's the condition that makes the next spring possible. Your low period isn't failure. It's the root from which the next flourishing will grow. But only if you stop panicking when the cycle turns downward and trust that the return, like every return before it, is taking you somewhere necessary. 7 principles. Opposites create each other, so stop fleeing from half of your experience. Water wins through persistence without force, so stop breaking yourself against immovable stones. Emptiness is where usefulness lives, so stop suffocating your life by filling every space. Knowing when enough is enough prevents the blade